So we have a lot of teams here. You would look at it and say, well, Atlanta's not there. Dallas isn't there. Chicago just picked up Prestinni. Maybe they're going to be the clear favorites here. But then you have teams like New York Subliners and Minnesota Rocker and Optic Gaming. And now even the London Royal Ravens with the pickup of 0 that and Seattle too, you got to throw them in the mix. That you have a lot of these middle of the road teams where you're sort of thinking, okay, well, last tournament we saw a lot of upgrades. This might be a tournament where you can see that as well. So let's start with Chicago, though. Are they the clear favorites, Emily, with Prestinni coming in? Is there an instant improvement such that we look at this and say, you know what, especially with this tournament, with the teams that are involved, this is the Huntsmen's tournament to lose?
I feel like we already would have been looking at the Huntsmen as this is the Huntsmen's tournament to lose, right? So the fact that Prestinni is joining and has the potential to kind of revitalize them internally, I still believe that, right? Because we're now pretty shaky on Minnesota after their showing at the last event, where I was like, this is, primed for them to win, right? And they didn't make it out. So, I mean, I don't think it's as clear cut of a thing as if Dallas or Atlanta were at this event, I would be like, okay, it's one of them, right?
Yeah.
Or if they're both there, I'm like, okay, Dallas Atlanta finals again, and we're gonna see who's better. Because I do think like one cool thing that's happening right now, we talked about this last week, is that in my opinion, it's Dallas and Atlanta are at the top, right? Like Dallas 1, Atlanta 2, and then this giant mush of teams that like you have no
like
idea.
4 teams that you're like, where do
they're just like, where they're going, and that makes the tournament really interesting. So I mean, and the Huntsmen, where we were still putting them at like 3, 4, somewhat generously, maybe in some people's opinions, but like I think this is a great chance for the Huntsmen to come out and really make a statement. Because if you do look at the other teams, like New York, I think like to your point, Arter, we have to be looking at New York. We have to be looking at Optic. We have to be looking at London. We have to be looking at Seattle. The only 2 teams where you look at this and you're like, we probably know how they're going to perform are the Gorillas and Paris. By the way, I noticed that the Gorillas and Seattle are in the same side of the bracket.
Yeah, just farm those points, baby. Let's see what they
So
do.
that leads me to my.
To tell Katie.
So Katie, do you think? Let's go right into it then. With Enable back, do you think Seattle beats any other team other than LAG this weekend?
I mean, Seattle just can't close. And that was another thing that I talked to Octane about, right? Is that like S&D is always going to be their Achilles heel because the majority of the players on that team, yes, they're talented. Yes, they're veterans. Yes, they're winners, but they're not known for S&D. So they're pretty damn good at their respawns, so they can push it to that game 5, but it's always going to be on the back foot. That was his quote. They're always going to be on the back foot. The thing is like they've had extremely close game 5s, or even the games that the map count was a 3-0 or a 3-1. A lot of them have been extremely close against much better teams. So I think if Seattle can simply close things out, then yeah, they can absolutely compete. It's just they can't close. And I think once they fix that problem, you'll see a lot more out of them. In terms of the Gorillas, I feel like I'm just waiting for them to have the moment Toronto did and the moment that Optic did, where they finally just clicked and shined. Like the entire team just figured it out. And I said it last tournament, it didn't really hold particularly true there, but once again, like I've just been hearing good things out of their scrims, that they've, they beat these teams, they beat some of the best teams in scrims. So when am I going to see it translate to an actual tournament performance? And maybe it's at this event, who knows? But I mean, you can't let Seattle beat you for the 5th time. Like
I was gonna say, like, boy, hold that L, like facing them the first game after everything that's happened this season.
Like you just like. So I think based on the bracketing for Seattle for Group A, it will be Gorillas in London and Seattle in New York, for that bracket matchup. Okay. But I just. You can't. They're your boogeyman. All 40 points Seattle has earned have literally been solely from the Los Angeles Gorillas. The Gorillas are in dead last. I just want to see them have that moment. Like, I know you can. Same with Seattle. I know you can. Just do it. Like, just do it.
So speaking of just doing it, Optic did just that last tournament. They made it to the final.
Mhm.
Now they are here again with a very, let's be clear, a very good chance to again go far in this tournament. Okay, to ride that
Mhm.
momentum. My question is, how far do we need to see them go in order to truly believe that they will be contenders for the remainder of the season? Emily, what do you think?
I mean, this is so like for as much as I spent the introductory part kind of dunking on Minnesota for their performance, this is still a tough bracket to get out of for Optic because I do think Minnesota are still a good team. You have Chicago, you have Paris, who I think are pretty solidly like not bad, not great. Um, but I think it has to be like in order what you're saying like in order for them to have a chance at winning everything or just performing really well down the road generally because if it's the latter I'd say semifinals. If it's winning everything I'd say they have to at least make it to finals, which is not out of the question for this team. I mean, I think they still have some issues with Chino coming in. I don't think he like solved all of their problems, but I think that they looked significantly better and really well coordinated the last time we saw them. So if they can continue to improve and iterate on that, I mean, this team has just insane talent on it individually.
Are they for real, Katie?
Yeah, I think that's going to be kind of a determining factor here. I can't remember who said the phrase. Maybe it was Kleister. I'm not sure, but someone said it was a matter of when, not if. And
Mhm.
this will be huge for because actually, I mean, you look at the teams here, and this is something that is entirely doable for someone like Optic. They were so good at the last event, but can they do that again? Some of these players, you know, TJ's heating up, Dashy's looking great, Slasher had a phenomenal
Oh my god.
weekend in Florida. And is Chino going to continue to improve? So you look at them as like, can you do it again? And for me, what that means is you need to make grand finals. It's not even about winning it. Obviously, that's great, but you need to make those grand finals, or you need to have the most competitive semifinal loss we've ever seen, right? Like we need to see them have that fire and close out their series like they did in Florida, or it's just going to be a blip on the radar. And obviously that's not something anyone wants to see. But yeah, Optic is one of the teams within this that I look at that I'm like, if you play like you did last tournament, then I expect you in the grand finals.